Well, they'd worked out by that time the way that this, anti-gravity propulsion or gravity field warping, still not quite sure what to call it, and it operated on the principle of a rotating magnetic field, and it used a Mercury plasma. So they, as you say, they'd set up this inner tube or this torus or this donut-shaped unit and powered it all up, and they chained it all down because they felt it was going to take off. And he relates this story that was told to him.
Another friend who worked for General Dynamics in Fort Worth described a program in which he worked a plasma accelerator in the mid-60s, researching gravity warping techniques. He is a physicist by education and trade. This was his first top secret program. He described a foil-like material, much like that discovered after Roswell crash. He described the foil as 12 layers of material less than 10,000ths of an inch thick. It was as flexible as a plastic trash bag, but virtually indestructible to piercing, burning, or cutting, which you've probably all heard before. Here's what you haven't heard. In order to cut the material used for the project, the material was supercooled, a large electrical charge was applied to polarize the molecular structure, and a laser cutter was applied in order to cut this material. Large ribbons of this material were used to reinforce the accelerator, which contained the mercury-based plasma that they started researching in 1965. The plasma was cooled to superconductive temperatures, rotated at 45,000 revolutions per minute, and pressurized at 150,000 atmospheres. This would be considered state-of-the-art technology even today.
Okay, so just to describe that, you've got a mercury-based plasma. Plasma is like a gas which has become ionized, if you like, and it's being rotated at 40,000 or higher revolutions per minute. Now, what that suggests to me is you've got something which is highly conductive, can conduct electricity, which is whizzing around, charged. That is a current. It's an electric current going around in a circle. Right, so what you're going to get, every electric current, if a current goes that way, it has a magnetic field going around that way. So you're going to get a magnetic field going around this donut, and it's going to be a field probably with some absolutely phenomenal strength, a phenomenal flux density, higher than you could get with copper or passing electricity down a wire. So you've got this phenomenally large magnetic field, but as Ed describes it as more of a vortex field, so not only is it doing that, it's possibly got a twist in it as well. Yeah. And this highly intense magnetic vortex field is what somehow disrupts gravity. Yeah. Because physicists will generally agree that all forces are unified at some level.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that's my understanding, is along the lines that you've just described. And I mean, going back to some of the other things that I've come across in relation to that, Wilbert Smith in the early 60s, he'd said that the information he'd got led him to believe that gravity and magnetism were interrelated, and gravity was actually a result of changing magnetic fields within objects. And then also you look at, for example, the Nazi bell, the stories about the Nazi bell, that was meant to use a rotating mercury-based plasma as well. Similarly, the Vimanas, the ancient Vimanas in the Vedic scripts, the Vimanaka Shastra also talks about a mercury plasma. So it appears that mercury is important because of it's a very unusual element, mercury, because it's liquid. It's the only metal that's liquid at room temperature. And there's and it's very dense as well. So what is it about mercury? Obviously something very special about it, and it can be used perhaps in a form of a plasma to create a magnetic field. To create an anti-gravity field.
And as Fouché says in that clip, everything that was inside this huge donut was lost 50% of its mass or its weight, or if it was on a pair of scales, it would be 50% of what it should have weighed. Right. Which they're then going to try and develop into getting it off the ground.
The original TR-3B was 200 feet across, the prototype. It was codenamed Astra, and I was just informed by Jeff Rentz when I did his radio show that Astra has connections all the way back to the Indian flying vehicles several thousand years ago, which is interesting. They codenamed it Astra. The Tactical Reconnaissance TR-3B first flight was in the early 90s. The triangular-shaped, nuclear-powered aerospace platform was developed under the top-secret Aurora program. By 1994, there were $3 billion-plus operational models. The operational model is 600 feet across. This flying triangle is not fiction. If you don't believe me, ask the tens of thousands of people who have now spotted one version or another of it, from Belgium to England. Ken can tell you about people that have seen it in England to Arizona. The TR-3B vehicle's outer coating is reactive to electrical radar stimulation and can change reflectiveness, radar absorptiveness, and color. The polymer skin, when used in conjunction with electronics countermeasures and ECCM, can make the vehicle look like a small aircraft, flying cylinder, or even trick radar receivers into falsely detecting a variety of aircraft, an aircraft in another location, multiple aircraft, or no aircraft at all. The circular plasma field accelerator ring, called the magnetic field disruptor, surrounds a rotatable crew compartment. It's far ahead of anything you've ever imagined as far as technology. Sandia and Livermore Laboratories developed a reverse engineered MFD, and I believe the government will go at any lengths to protect this technology. But you're not going to be able to build one of these from what I tell you, nor am I. So the government will go to any lengths. Believe me, the plasma in this accelerator is mercury based. It's pressurized at 250,000 atmospheres at a temperature of 150 degrees Kelvin, superconductivity, and accelerated to 60,000 revolutions per minute to create a superconductive plasma with the resulting gravity energy. The MFD generates a magnetic vortex field which disrupts and neutralizes the effects of gravity on mass within proximity by 89%. Do not misunderstand, this is not anti-gravity. Anti-gravity you can use as a propulsive force. The mass of the circular accelerator and all the mass within the accelerator, such as the crew compartment, avionics, MFD systems, fuels, environmental systems, and nuclear reactor, are reduced by 89%. This causes the effect of making the aircraft extremely light and able to outperform any aircraft yet constructed, except of course those we didn't build. TR-3B is a high-altitude stealth reconnaissance platform with indefinite loiter time. Once you get it up there at speed, it doesn't take much propulsion to maintain altitude. With the vehicle's mass reduced by 89%, the vehicle can travel at Mach 9 vertically or horizontally. So for those that have had sightings of things making right, and they're not perfect right turns, obviously. Nothing can make a perfect right turn. It's against the laws of physics. But it sure looks like a right turn at a distance. For those that have seen it, that's how they do it. The TR-3B uses 3 multi-mode thrusters mounted on each corner of the triangular platform. The multi-mode propulsion system can operate in the atmosphere with thrust provided by the nuclear reactor, and in the upper atmosphere with hydrogen propulsion, and in orbit with combined hydrogen-oxygen propulsion. The original picture of the TR-3B was taken with a digital camera that was carried on a Special Operations C-130 out of Hurlburt Field. It was flying mission support for the TR-3B. The current picture, by the way, that was developed with 3D Studio from that digital picture hangs in the Black Vault at Lockheed.
So the US Air Force and the NSA have got 600 feet wide platforms that can take off from a standing start silently, travel into space and back, and who knows where in the solar system or even outside of the solar system. They've had these, or a fleet of these, since the early 1990s, and they've told no one about them. So wake up, folks. The space shuttle and the Apollo programs were diversions to stop you from realizing what the US Air Force has been doing for the last 30 or 40 years. So you want to comment, Andrew?
Yeah, I couldn't really have put it better than that. I mean, I do think that all the Apollo program and the similar programs were a distraction, and they were to soak up, the relevant amount of expertise and curiosity about space travel, and that all helps to keep the focus away from all the black programs such as the TR-3B, and I think, as Ed will talk about, there are probably others which we don't really know about.
And what he says about the development of the craft, they only managed to get it to reduce its weight by 89%.
Yeah.
Therefore, they put it inside a triangle and put thrusters on the three corners of the triangle, which use hydrogen propulsion or hydrogen oxygen propulsion.
Yeah.
So it's got these jets on the three corners in order to reduce that last bit of weight or get it off the ground, and also propel it. And he alleges that it's capable of Mach 9, did he say?
Yeah, I think Mach 9.
Mach 9, that's 9 times the speed of sound, either vertically or horizontally.
Yeah.
And I think Ed is fairly convinced that the TR-3B is what was witnessed in the Belgian UFO sightings.
Yeah.
This was in 1990, I think.
89, I think, or 1990.
89 or 1990. So they were flying them around Belgium and parts of Europe, and the Air Force were chasing them.
Yep. You know, as you've reported on your documentary, Richard, this is partly why I got in touch with you about this, because I think it ties in with your almost identified flying objects in the documentary at some level. You know, we don't know, but if you look at what the witnesses that you have in that documentary described, you can see a pretty strong similarity to what Edgar Fouché describes. And we've got to remember that Edgar Fouché disclosed this information in '98, so it was way before your documentary came out, way before you and I were really into this material.
So we're not saying that there's some unexplained or possibly non-human element to some UFO cases. What we're saying is that some of the triangular ones we're pretty sure are undisclosed craft with phenomenal technology on them. Right. Now, this is a list of questions which I think you can get from your website, Andrew, and it's the aircraft researcher Michael Schratt put some questions to Edgar Fouché, and he's answered all of them. And I'm just going to read some of them because I find the answers pretty incredible. It says that there were 3 flying that he knew of before 1994. They're used for logistic support and transportation for the Secret Space Command. If used on a planet, moon or large outpost, you would have a ready-made transportable space station. So it's presumably going to the moon and possibly other planets in our solar system. A portable space station which can probably carry vast amounts of payload.
Yeah, I mean, the other term is a space platform rather than a space station, in that you can a platform, obviously you can launch other things from it, or you can use it as a support vehicle for other other craft.